Greetings. I'm very happy to be here today. I was here last year and glad to come back and just talk high level what we did and what we talked about last year, but what we're doing now. But I'd like to extend greetings from the director, Dr. France Cordova. She has really done some really outstanding things in the area to try to address power dynamics, power differentials, and address these issues around harassment, sexual harassment that I think will be a legacy, and I'm very honored to work for her. So the objective today is hopefully to help you understand a little bit what we at NSF has done to try to help make an impact and change the institutional research environments and make them much more safe. And hope you leave understanding that we do not tolerate harassment. So last year when I was here, I was talking about the term condition. What that term condition is, it's a term that institutions must notify us if a PI or co-PI that we are funding is involved in harassment, sexual assault, or other forms of harassment. We put that term condition in the Federal Register. That notice went out to the public. We got nearly 200 comments, and as I said last year, we ended in the middle. Those comments said you are not doing enough, you need to do a lot more, and then some of them said you're trying to do way too much, but we appreciate what you're doing. We think we're landing in the middle somewhere. It was a good place to start. We also have been doing a lot of outreach activities. We've learned that there's a lot more we need to do in this area. We recently learned that some institutions are a little confused about our term condition and not sure when they are to report, so we plan to be working on that. So the final term and condition looks like this. The notification requirements, institutions must notify us if a PI or co-PI is involved in sexual harassment, if that is an allegation or if it is a finding. And who we require to notify us is the Office of Sponsored Research. The reason we require the Office of Sponsored Research is because that office was the office that was certifying every time they get federal funding from us that the institution was in compliance with all Title IX and non-discrimination laws. And they really were not communicating across to the Title IX offices. So it really put them in a challenge where they were really putting information on a document, a federal document, that might not have been the truth in some instances. And so what will invoke a notification? So if a PI or co-PI has a finding of discrimination as it relates to sexual assault, sexual harassment, or some other form of harassment, the institution must notify us. If the institution takes any administrative action against the PI, a no contact order of any, we want to know about it. And it's very important. A lot of people ask, why did we only deal with PIs and co-PIs? Well, that was a good starting point. We felt like we dealt with other personnel or students, it would have been a lot more challenging. And so we started with the PIs. But we expect all personnel that work on our funded grants to abide to all the non-discrimination laws and regulations, including the ones associated with sexual harassment, sexual assault, and other forms of harassment. We do not require notification, but if we become aware of any personnel, we will reach out to that institution to address that issue, whether it is a PI or a co-PI. So what do we consider when we get a notification from an institution? We're first concerned of the safety and security of all the personnel that's supported on that grant. That's the conversation we'll be having. Usually it is involved the Office of Sponsored Research, Title IX Office, Office of General Counsel, and we will have a conversation. We don't want to know who the individual that was impacted. We don't need the details that would expose their identity, but we do need to know enough to make a determination that the personnel that are working on that grant is safe. We also are interested in the overall impact to the NSF-funded activity. We bring our program officers in, not to get into the details about the grant, but if, for instance, a PI has been put on administrative leave, does that mean that the grant can be still carried out? And that's something that only the program officer would know. And that also relates to the continued advancement of the science and the scientists. And whether the awardee took the appropriate steps, if whatever the allegation or what the finding was, did they take the appropriate steps to make sure it was appropriate for what occurred? So what we do, we consult with the designated authorized official, and we make sure that they have a conversation with the Title IX office, and we'll schedule those meetings. Sometimes it's a series of meetings, but we'll schedule it where that authorized official will know exactly what we're looking for, so when it comes to time for that call, that they can have all the people in the room to address it. And what we may do, we may initiate the substitution or removal of a PI. It all depends. There's no cookie cutter approach. Some grants, the PI cannot come on campus, but can still do their research at home. Some instances they may not, but in our conversations, that's what we'll make a determination about. We may even reduce the award. We try to work diligently to not impact other students, postdocs, and other individuals on the ward as kind of our last resort, but we may do that. And when neither above are available or adequate, we can suspend and terminate the award. And we have done some of all that I've just shared with you. Now, what are some of the things that we're looking at? I serve on a co-chair with NIH at the White House in the Office of Science and Technology Policy, and we're working on some initiatives with safe and inclusive research environments. And so these are some of the things we had started before we started co-chairing that working group. So it's going to be a lot more things we're looking at beyond here. But what we've recently done is that we have new conference grant requirements. Individual that use NSF funds to go to a grant must have processes and procedures in place if something were to happen at that grant, at that conference related to harassment, assault, sexual harassment. They must be posted and notify the individual prior to attending the conference, the grant conference. We're providing outreach and training for the research community. We're going to be going out to several of the institutions, several organizations, professional societies, to have more detailed conversations to make sure that individuals are clear on what we're looking for. And some of the areas that we'll be focusing on in the upcoming months, they're what we call special programs, SBIR, REUs and postdoctoral fellowships, career, graduate research fellowship programs, travel, and field sites. We know that determined condition, when we put that in place, that it wouldn't adequately address those issues. So we're now having to tailor individual processes that we can really make sure we can address sexual harassment, sexual assault, and other forms of harassment in those programs. I'd like to say before I end that it's been our year anniversary was October 22nd of this year since we had to put the term and condition in place. We're planning a 3-phase evaluation process. The first phase includes evaluating how well we're implementing the term and condition at the National Science Foundation. The second phase, we plan to let a contract so we can get someone to help us determine the appropriate metrics to determine the impact and effectiveness of the term and condition. After we get those metrics, then we will let another contract to actually implement a tool to actually assess that. That concludes my talk, and thank you very much.